It's Christmas time, and you know what that means. Well, maybe you don't unless you know me personally. But it is time to do a ranked and reviewed on one of my all-time favorite bands, System of a Down, featuring some home workout equipment that's been used a few times this year. Yeah, buddy, this is gonna be a good one. Yo, what's up? This is Jay Dennis, and I'm back with another ranked and reviewed. And today I'm gonna do one of my all-time favorite bands. It should have occurred to me long ago, but System of a Down is definitely one of the most influential bands that helped shape my musical career. This is actually a shirt from high school, which is why it looks all worn, and I've gained like 40 pounds of muscle and other shit since high school. So a little tight. I do have another one. I do another System of a Down shirt. It's the one where they're the four hands of the clock, if that makes sense. It's like from the Mesmerize era. Anyway, yeah, System of a Down is definitely in my top 10 favorite bands, and after re-listening to all 5 of their albums, I was able to easily rank them, but there is no other band like System of a Down. Not just in nu metal, but just ever. These 4 guys made insane music back in the day, and before I get into their iconic 5-album legacy from 1998 to 2005, we need to talk about their 2 new songs that came out. So this is actually like perfect timing for me to do this ranked and reviewed, because I was a little late to the party, not on listening to Protect the Land and Genocidal Humanoids, which are both fantastic songs, but I was a little late in understanding why they wrote the songs. It hadn't occurred to me that there was some unrest, to say the least, in Armenia, and just global affairs that inspired System of a Down to write these 2 songs to raise money for awareness and anything else. And that's just kind of the power of music, and that's the power of getting a band where at least half the members aren't really interested in doing anything. I've listened to podcasts and interviews with Shavo and John. They're both very interested in writing a new album with System of a Down, but Serge and Darren, who are the primary voices and I guess writers in the band, they're a little bit more hit or miss, especially Serge, I think. So for them to finally come together, do something outside of touring during a global pandemic, it just kind of really showcases how powerful music is and what it can take for you to write something so powerful. So again, I didn't realize, wow, Protect the Land and Genocidal Humanoids, and then the meaning behind it, the music video behind Protect the Land, just very powerful to say the least. Maybe I'll do a separate talking nu metal on that, but that's kind of what inspired me to go back and re-listen to these 5 albums. I have never done a ranked and reviewed so quickly. I listened to them all in one day, and these albums had such a massive impact on me in high school. I still know all the songs, pretty much all the lyrics. I just wanted to double check to make sure I was 100% sure about my rankings. But these are 5 solid albums. They're an amazing band, to say the least. And just like with all my other ranked and reviewed, generally if I'm talking about favorite bands, I usually love all the albums. Also, it's winter out here and it's really cold, so I have my fireplace on, so hopefully that doesn't affect the volume. But anyway, 5 insanely good albums, all had a major impact on the early songwriting days of myself, my old band. I have a lot of great memories to these albums. A lot of good memories with my old best friends. So, doing this for fun, obviously, I'd recommend any album for System of a Down, but of course, I'm just kind of going to go through which ones were the most impactful versus like the least impactful, and how they stood the test of time, but overall their entire discography is fucking immense. And it's hard to find that. And especially it's hard to find that with a band that kind of got weird and experimental like System of a Down did, but holy shit did they do well. So let's go ahead and get started. At the number 5 spot, we have their self-titled album. So generally when I rank and review, and this is their first album, when I rank and review, there's a few factors I take into place. For a first release, this album is insanely good. The handful of songs on here that still, to this day, stick out to me and are still my favorites are Soil, the single War, it's the question mark, and then of course the closing track, Pluck, or Politically Lying Unholy Cowardly Killers, I think that's what it stands for. Yeah, Rick Rubin had his hand on this whole discography, so you just cannot fuck with it. As a first release, this is powerful, but it's kind of System of a Down at the most raw and kind of unrefined, and even though Serge's vocals sound insane on this album, they're not his best, and the guitar work isn't explosive yet, and I got no complaints about the drumming or the bass. John Dolmain's always been a bit of a monster of a drummer, and Shalo's bass tone in his playing is also really good. I think he's primarily a guitar player, but he plays bass in SOAD. But you know, there really isn't a single System of a Down song that I dislike. But if I was going to be nitpicky, I would just say songs like, I guess, Darts. And even though Mind is a great, like, 5 or 6 minute track, it's just, you know, kind of tracks like that that kind of just weigh this one down. But again, this is just kind of System of a Down at their most unrefined, but even in their rawest form, songs like these, they bash, they slap live. And as a first release, you knew that this band was going to be doing amazing, powerful, unique things. So at the number 5 spot, we have their self-titled, which I love. Be sure to check out my Talking Nu Metal from 2 years ago, where I did the 20-year anniversary video of this. I have a lot of love for this album, but they've got better ones coming up. Number 4 spot, we have Steal This Album. You might be wondering, how is basically a Toxicity's B-Sides album better than self-titled? Well, Toxicity B-Sides. This is very much like the first album, where it's not their top tier material, but because you have basically songs from the same session as Toxicity, you've got that brilliant tone that you find in Toxicity, and then you have some of the same energy that you got from Toxicity in songs on here. A sleeper of a song, which I didn't really start to appreciate until later, was track 8. Oh, yeah, yeah, oh, oh. We light up the sky. Anyway, I got a lot of love for this album. Songs like Pictures, Highway Song, Ego Brain, like just the whole back side of this album, tracks 8 through 16 are just fucking brilliant. But then of course the beginning of the album is fun too. Chicken Stew is a fun, solidly comical opening track that's just super heavy and super funny at the same time. Intervision, it's a little more serious, but it's got that powerful low-end sound. Bubbles is a bit of a smash where it's just like fast, but like dance to it and have some fun. Boom is politically awesome. It's got, I mean, it's devastating, the themes behind it, but it's also got a great music video. New Guns, which you kind of heard me play on guitar there a little bit, is a pretty good song too. There's just a nice blend of heavy music and of course clean stuff going on. But they just kind of show a lot of maturity in songs like Ego Brain, Data Waves. Data Waves has a great guitar solo. Roulette is a great acoustic track, which my friend and I, my old bandmate, old best friend and I, we used to cover that song together. And then Streamline is an awesome closing track. It's just, there's just more power in this album, even though it's a bunch of B-sides. But it's not to say that the first album doesn't have amazing songs. Like if I can go back to this one for a minute, Politically Lying Unholy Cowardly Killers is such a fantastic closer of a song. Track 5 off of this album, or track 13, the last track, is awesome. And of course the singles Sugar and Spiders are great too. So look at that, I went back and forth. I haven't done that in the video yet. 3 spot, Mesmerize. How the fuck did I? Yeah, Mesmerize. So this is their most inconsistent album, but aside from the #1 album, it's kind of the only album that's got a couple of perfect tracks, meaning a 10 out of 10. The singles off this album can't be fucked with. BYOB and Question. This is the album that was basically their most recent when I got into System of a Down. I got into them a little bit late, but I was into System of a Down during their, I guess you could say their prime or towards the end of their main discography. In 2005, as I was graduating middle school, BYOB came out. It was huge. That summer was awesome for me musically. And eventually I just got into some other albums, and then of course I was doing my best to get this one because the song Question, I was obsessed with it. I was obsessed with BYOB. And then when I finally heard the entire album, every song just gripped me, except, to this day, a few tracks that I still find not bad, but not great. Just kind of, they're good songs. Radio Video, Violent Pornography, and the last 2 tracks, the Hollywood duo. They just, I don't know what it is. When they get weird and they do it well, it's untouchable. But when they get weird and it just misses, it just takes away quality from the song, because the music is awesome in pretty much every song, but when vocally it gets kind of weird, and I don't know how to say this, but I prefer Surge more. I want to hear more Surge. I love hearing him and Darren Malkian together. Darren's a great vocalist, and of course he's a sick guitar player, and he's a funny guy who is really just like one of the most honest people ever. But when the album is kind of saturated with Darren Malkian, it can be a little hit or miss in my opinion. But it doesn't mean that this still isn't an excellent album. It's just the songs that are more heavy on the Darren and the weird side, it's a little harder because, I guess maybe because Surge has a lower voice and he's got more aggression behind his voice, he's got a little bit more margin or leeway to do that. But in the Hollywood songs, and then in Radio Video, it gets a little weird for me, and that's why I think they're great songs, and it kind of weighs the album down. Otherwise, all the other tracks are excellent. Best intro, Soldier Side, Revenja, I love that song. I love Cigarro. Cigarro is the fucking tits. Me and my old band, 2 songs that we used to cover live were BYOB and Cigarro. Cigarro was so much fun. I love that song. This Cocaine Makes Me Feel Like I'm on this song. Of course, Question's one of my all-time favorite singles, and then of course, Sad Statue's a great song. Really great themes to show you to what is in store for their last album. But this is just their most inconsistent album, but there's still a lot of powerful tracks on here that elevate it to just like smack down in the middle of my favorites. Which brings us to our #2 album, which, by the way, between the top 2, obviously, I was torn between originally what I thought was going to be #1. These next 2 albums these are the 2 most sentimental ones to me. All 5 of these albums have a lot of sentimental value to me because they were just so dominant my freshman year of high school and my early days of writing music with, my best friends. With regards to like new metal influence, aside from System of a Down, or aside from Linkin Park and whatever else I was listening to, it was all about System of a Down. So this is why this is such an important and fun video for me. But upon re-listening to these top 2 albums, it was kind of a no-brainer where I thought each of them should go. #2 spot, we have Hypnotize, which is the more consistent partner to Mesmerize. It came out the same year, right? Yeah, I got it the Christmas of 2005 when I was a freshman. I had it loaded up on my first generation iPod Nano. So, of all the ranked and reviews that I've done, System of a Down is kind of one of the few bands where I was with them, not through the entirety, obviously, like I said earlier, but just through the last bit of the main catalog, I was there for it. And the potency and the power, them tuning up half a step for these last two albums. They played in drop C for their first three, and then they played in C sharp for either all or most of, barring a few songs. I think there might be a few songs where they still play in C, like Stealing Society, or This Cocaine. But there's just a serious note to it. Again, sentimental value with like Christmas, everything like that. System of a Down is like a winter band for me. Granted, they're great enough to listen to them all year, but they just went fucking ham with this album, dude. The only thing that this album doesn't have on Mesmerize is the singles. Hypnotize and Lonely Day are both awesome songs, but they're not as good as BYOB, no question. But this album scores higher because of the consistency of the album. There's not a single, really not a single blemish on this album. If I had to be nitpicky, and this still hasn't changed, these are the same songs that have been my least favorite since I was 14, but I still like these songs. Dreaming, I guess Stealing Society, like the chorus, or not the chorus, the bridge, Darren Malkine's bridge, and yeah, that's it. She's Like Heroin really grew on me. Yeah, Dreaming and Stealing Society are kind of the only tracks that was kind of, they were great songs, but they're not excellent songs in my opinion. But then the rest of the album, fucking Attack is just such an assault on the senses, and then it goes from fast to slow to melodic, and this is just a perfect album that blends together melody and intensity and anger and meaningful beauty all in one disc. To me, the trifecta of, not even trifecta anymore, it's more like the quadfecta is tracks 6 through 9. Tentative, You Fig, or You and Me Should Go Outside, Unforgettable, Flag Waving Geeks, Flag Waving Ignorant Geeks. Tentative, You Fig, Holy Mountains, and Vicinity of Obscenity. Those 4 tracks in a row are just excellent. Holy Mountains is one of my favorite songs. It's probably the best song on the album. Vicinity of Obscenity is, again, another assault of speed and catchiness. Kind of got some like more modern day Toxicity vibes from that. You know, terracotta pop. Like it just sounds like some shit you hear off of Toxicity or something. She's Like Heroin, it's really dark. That's probably one of the best Darren Malkian dominated songs. Great guitar work too. Same thing with Lonely Day, another Darren Malkian dominated song, which is a beautiful song, got a great guitar solo. And then of course Soldier Side, the outro, the beautiful way to finish the intro to the outro of Soldier Side. This is an excellent dual disc. You know, came out, like 5 or 6 months apart from each other, I guess. But this is just a more consistent album than Mesmerize. But the singles on Mesmerize are better. But the consistency and just kind of, again, the sentimental value on this one is just more powerful for me, which is why it's comfortably at the number 2 spot. Fuck. I'm just sitting in my car waiting for my she's scared that I will take away from me. Mention the reasons why they were there. And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for. I know you're really surprised. This is once again another Ranked and Reviewed video where I get to talk about one of the few albums in my life that are, say it with me, flawless! Toxicity. You know, during certain parts of your life, you ask the question, where was I at when I first listened to this, or where was I at when this happened? Sometimes we ask that question when tragic shit happens, like where were we during 9/11, or where were we during Trump getting elected? And then where were we at when he lost? Yeah, this far into the video I just alienated some of you, so enjoy. But whatever, we're talking about a political band here. Where was I at the first time I heard Toxicity? Let me tell you. Toxicity is once again part of that stack of CDs that was at my dad's house. That these CDs I believe belonged to my uncle, and my dad just happened to have them. Toxicity was in there, and he said, "Oh, hey son, you should listen to this." And I did. I put it in my CD player. I walked up to the bus stop. There's two different routes I can take to the bus stop. I can either go up the main road from my house up the hill, or I can cross the street, cut through my neighbor's yard, and walk up this nice shaded sidewalk that led directly up to where the bus stop actually was, requiring no additional turns. A little bit more of a secluded, kind of private, not wanting to see anybody kind of route. I walked up that hill, that sidewalk in my neighborhood while listening to this. First time I turned it on, hit play, heard the first note of Prison Song. I don't know why I almost said the Prison Song. Prison Song. And I heard that chorus, and I heard what? No, oh my god, I was just quoted Pluck. Oh god, this is embarrassing. The first time I just heard Darren Malkian scream. Oh yeah. Dun 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 dun! You know, basically the breakdown where Darren Malkian is like screaming in the middle, and then Serge Tank comes in, well, research and drug policy shows the treatment should be increased. Duh! Law enforcement decrees while abolishing. What? My wife is watching me. Okay. Yeah, I remember the first time I listened to this album, and then it was at the freshman year of high school. And again, this was kind of on the tail end of listening to BYOB over the summer, because that was kind of like one of the big singles of the summer. But I listened to this, and from start to finish, I loved every single song. There's not a single blemish on this album. This is in my top 10 albums of all time. Not a single flaw. You don't change anything about this album. It's perfect. Even a song like X, which is just a weird short song, which didn't make sense to me back then, adds to the charm of the album. Same thing with Shimmy. Like, everything about this album is just perfect. The tone, the guitar tone, the sound of Serge and Darren together, there's just the right amount of Darren in this album. Again, I don't dislike Darren, but I think when he overshadows Serge, it kind of takes away from the overall value, because Serge is the lead vocalist. I think Serge should have the spotlight, and then Darren compliments him as much as possible. But just the lyrical themes, the unique nature of the dynamics between the type of lyric paired with just the blistering rhythm section, and then when Darren actually unleashes, this is definitely the best sophomore success I've ever heard. It took the raw power of Self-Titled, and they improved the guitar work, improved the tone, and improved the vocal and lyric capabilities and the dynamics between Serge and Darren, to the point where every song on this album is iconic. Prison Song, Needles, Deer Dance, the bridge in Deer Dance. Like System of a Down was one of the bands where, as a beginner guitar player, I was trying to learn as many songs as possible, but a few of the songs were a bit out of my reach. Like learning the bridge to Deer Dance or the bridge to Science, like it wasn't very easy at all. But then like, again, just take the singles off this album. You have Chop Suey. Like that is the song that defined a generation. I think it just recently surpassed 1 billion views on YouTube, so that's huge. Toxicity and Aerials, like those are just kind of their biggest singles. Toxicity and Aerials aren't my favorite System of a Down singles. I actually prefer the singles off of Mesmerize, but it doesn't mean that what this album offers isn't just comically heavy, intelligent, and just so well executed all at the same time. And then at its place in history. Second album during the turn of the century. This album just fit right in. It was beautiful. The speed that you hear in songs like Jet Pilot, the fucking reggaeton drum beat in Jet Pilot, Bounce. I went out on that date with a girl, she'd been late, she had so many friends. Like, I brought my pogo stick. Like, there's just so many, every song on here is catchy. Every song on here is memorable. It is just relentless gold. Like, they spun a yarn with this album, and then they kind of slowed it down with Atwa, which I think is air, trees, water, something else. But it's just another beautiful, soft song, but then the chorus gets heavy. The bounce back between soft and heavy is just fluid, it's beautiful. But I think one of the most underrated songs is Forest. The progression throughout that entire song, the drumming, like, that is probably the most musically top tier song on the album. And then the song that kind of was the heaviest for me back in the day, and I still love to this day, is Psycho. That guitar solo, the heaviness, the piano outro, like, truth be told, when I went to listen to this and thinking, is this going to be better than Hypnotize? As soon as I listened to the Prison song, I was like, yes, it is. And I had an edible while I listened to this again, and oh god, it just hits you so hard. Am I breaking ground with this? Toxicity, System of a Down's best album. It's one of the best albums of all time, and for me, my personal development and my musical journey and everything else in life, this album is like one of like the Knights of the Round, Holy Grail, Holy Trinity. I know I'm using different numbers here of albums that just define me as a person. This album is one of the cornerstones of who I am as a musician, who I am as a metal fan, new metal and otherwise. So let's recap. Number 5, self-titled. Number 4, steal this album. Number 3, Mesmerize. 2, Hypnotize. And 1, of course, Toxicity. A perfect dime of an album. 10 out of 10. No blemishes, no nitpicking, nothing. This album is perfect. So sad. So thank you guys for watching this video very much. Anyway, be sure to check out the rest of my channel, subscribe, check out my other ranked and reviewed. I recently did Megadeth, Seven Dust, a couple of other bands that are huge for me. Be sure to leave down your thoughts, what you agree with, what you disagree with, what some of your favorite songs are, your System of a Down stories, why you think an album should be higher or lower, your favorite songs, least favorite songs. And hey, maybe you can leave your thoughts on the new System of a Down songs. I'd love to hear them. I think it's got really great reception so far. So again, I'm Jay Dennis. Thanks for watching, and until next time.